Welcome everybody! We are back for more Monster, episode 60 and 61 this time. Maybe it's just 60 as well, like it depends on how much time I actually have on my hands. Actually, I need to check something. Better. I had a different like focus window for one of my videos. But yeah, we're back with Monster, and with some very exciting, interesting episodes probably, where we are about to find out what's gonna happen to Martin now that he's seen the devil and walked past him and whatnot, and maybe knows a little bit too much, as the title of this episode says. We'll have to see how he ends that shootout as well, right? And how Tenma and Ornina or other people are involved, or if it's just if he's just the character who's involved with Ava and brushed up against Johan and his cult, basically. But yeah, today I'm actually shooting at 30 FPS with 60 shutter speed. We'll see how that works. YouTube generally does produce videos at 60 FPS. Normally I went down to 24 to make it more cinematic, but I feel like 30 FPS might be a really good idea. See how that jives. But yeah, we'll get into this. We only have like 14 episodes left to go, which is super scary because we're basically around one season or one core away from finishing all of this off, which is absolutely insane if you think about the fact that more than a year ago we started Monster, and it was a very, very cool journey throughout. But yeah, let's get this party started. Monster episode 60, titled The Man Who Knew Too Much, starts in 3, 2, 1, bam. And we are back with his mother, alright. That must be guilt. Like, I mean, he's conscientious enough to actually carry her almost every day, right? And this one day, out of frustration and... I mean, it wasn't. I'm trying to brainwash like him into believing that Ava wants to die. So is this where he takes a stance where he's like, no, I ain't gonna accept that? Like a child. After seeing something disturbing. We've seen that barrel of the gun pointing at her before. Yeah. There's more behind that death wish, right? Like it's not as straightforward. Right. No, deep down, nobody really wants to die. They might accept it when the moment comes, but that's different, right? That's that's a moment where you say to yourself, well, I've lived a full life and I was satisfied with myself for the most part. Yes, I made mistakes, but I had really great experiences and I have a really long time behind me, and maybe it is my time and that is okay. That's like what a decent amount of old people are doing because they feel that way. But obviously there's equal amounts of old people or just like middle-aged or young people who do feel like they haven't lived enough, they haven't experienced what they wanted to, or they can't look back and say, hey, I'm satisfied with it ending here because there's been a lot that's been great in my life. Some people need to first come to that conclusion, and sometimes it takes a little bit of processing and contemplating, and sometimes it takes actually doing things that you always wanted to do. I think Ava has many regrets in life, and many like emotional threats that she's still hanging on. All she wants is like end to pain and suffering in her own selfish, egotistical way. I don't know if diving out the window was a good choice. 5 minutes, holy shit.
追っ手が来た。外に連中の車が止まった。もう時間の問題だ。ここのメイドの制服を盗んできた。それを着て裏口から逃げろ。
あんた。
二人でのこのこ出てったら捕まえてくださいって言ってるようなもんだ。
I mean, he's right.
逃げなきゃやられる。
俺一人ならなんとかなる。デスクの上のメモに書いてある場所へ行け。天満のホテルだ。早く着替えろ。
フランクフルト中央駅で待ってる。一緒に逃げよう。
いい加減にしろ。冗談言ってる場合か。
She wasn't
天
joking.
満のところに行くのがあんたが助かる道で、あんたの望みだ。これは命令だ。早く行け。
あんたに指図される覚えは
I
ないわ。
knew she was gonna say that.
冗談よ。行くわ。
ああ。
無茶して死ぬような真似しないでよ。
俺があんたにそこまでする義理はない。
じゃあ。
It's very funny how they both kind of skirt around the truth. One last look.
So, 義理はない。
But you're still doing it.
あの女にここまでしてやる義理なんか。
I mean, sorry, should have sent better people.
一人、二人、三人、四人。
He's not wounded yet, right? So he's gonna get cut. Or did he just not realize the wound? Oh, is it the moment where he thinks he might have a chance? Oops. You poor fool. How is your body gonna find you? Oh, that hurts like a bitch, I'm sure.
ギャング同士の内部抗争と思われ、警察はモーテルの従業員から事件の状況を詳しく聞くとともに、聞いたかロビー。俺の武勇伝だ。ロビー。それでは次のニュースです。着いたぞ、マルテン。フランクフルト駅か。
いや、
ドクター。
Yeah, I mean, obviously, Telma's gonna try and patch him up.
あとはここでは無理だ。病院行こう。よせ。どうせ無理なのは分かってる。エヴァはどこだ？エヴァがどうしたんだ？ここに来てないのか？何笑ってんのバカ。もう黙ってろ。そうもいかねえ。
Not until she's safe.
ドクターテンマ、何から話せばいいか。たくさんいろいろ知りすぎた。まだ赤いバラの屋敷の実験は続いている。言っている意味わかるか？あと悪魔弟子を手に入れた。
That is scary because if it does, like,
あの男、メガネの男、赤いバラの屋敷の生き残り、ペトル・チャベック。
チャペック。
あの男は悪魔を操ろうとしているが、悪魔はもっと恐ろしく、もっと。
Of course.
ヤーレツサイトホテル606号室。そこに悪魔の弟子が。
At the moment, right? You don't know if he's still there.
ちゃいけない。奴のシナリオ通りに動いちゃいけない。誰も死にたがってなど。
Oh, he's just going through it. He's just like, it's like flashbacking through it.
俺は幸せだ。もう悪魔を見ないで済む。
Is he gonna die here?
俺をフランクフルト中央駅できっと2人分のチケットを買ってできるだけ遠くへ、できるだけ。エヴァが待ってるのか？守ってくれ、エヴァを。エヴァを。死ぬな。駅に行かなくちゃな。死ぬ。 死ぬな。
It's like a curse is on her, right? Every time she opens up to somebody, they die or something terrible happens.
そんなところにいても始発まではまだまだ時間がある。誰か待ってるのかい？男だね。だいたいわかるんだ。長年駅で働いているとな。
じゃあ相手が来るかどうかもわかる？
そんなのはわかんねえよ。占い師じゃねえんだから。ただ待つ相手がいるってことは幸せなこった。相手が来ようと来まいとな。
幸せ？
そう、この年になるとなかなかそういう気分にもならねえ。
幸せか。
おった、待ち人来たるかな。
I doubt it. Yeah.
Kenzo!
マルティンが死んだ。
どうやら待ち人じゃなかったようだな。
彼は重要な情報を伝えようと私のところにやってきた。最後の力を振り絞って逃げるんだ。早く。エヴァ。
まだ始発まで時間があるわ。ちょっと付き合ってくれる？
ああ。
It's interesting. Sorry, it's interesting how we meet at this point in time, right after all the shit that happened. And I feel like this is the first time where there's no animosity between the two of them. I mean, not that there ever was from Tenma's side, but there's like Eva at this point in time can't put up that shield because it's just not in her strength to do it, right? She's been drifting for so long, right, and running too for a while. And just trying to find a place where she belongs, where she can just settle down, right? Because it's been enough. She had her phase of like righteousness and vengeance directed at Tenma in the beginning. She had her phase of trying to burn the world, set it aflame, and like just looking for everything, like from alcohol over like partners or whatever, just to quell her pain and whatnot, and just deny everything and just keep it out. And then she had her phases of trying to kill Tenma, which was still kind of like the revenge thing, right? Like, but then realized in that pivotal moment that she couldn't do it, that there was like this thing that's keeping her from doing it. Regardless of, I don't think like she's in love with him anymore, but I think she still like has that idea of Tenma that survived through her phase of just like outward aggression and like blame shifting and revenge thoughts and hurt, like being hurt and whatnot. And being rejected as well by Tenma, obviously. That Tenma is a very good person and that she can't really kill him, for example. But every time they've met in the past, every time they were close to one another, right, on a physical level, there was her shield built up, right? It was her external, like her personality on the outside, that was keeping that shield. And now we have somebody who is, well, at the end of their rope, right? Martin, like she confided in Martin, who was maybe just the right person to confide in because of his unique characteristics and because of like his history and his past and how he opened up to her as well about his own past to a degree. And this was maybe one of the first people where she could just maybe let go, but also it was just the right time to do so as well, right? The right time in her life, the right time in her process of getting to grips with her reality, right? For like a last-ditch attempt of just getting back into that high society, whatever, and realizing that this is not really who she is anymore. And now all the defenses are down, right? Tenma comes to her in that moment of vulnerability and gives her the bad news, but that doesn't lead to her putting her aggression onto him again, because there is no aggression. There's exhaustion, there is pain and sadness, right? And almost like because she expected that to happen, that was like her worst fears. She's gonna find out, like he's not gonna come, or she's gonna find out he's dead. And now the Tenma is bringer of bad news, but also as somebody she was very closely tied to through most of her life, right? She had a very close emotional connection, be that a connection of love all the way in the beginning, or a connection of like outward turned hatred later on. But both of that is very intimate. And now we are sitting here having a conversation, giving each other company until she hopefully departs and has to figure out once again what to do with her life now, right? Because she's again directionless. She's again doesn't have any idea, and she's still fleeing, right? People still want her dead because she knows who Johan is.
酒じゃなくていいのか。
マルティン、あの人お酒嫌いだったから。
そうか。
マルティンに久しぶりね。
ああ。
ちゃんと食べてるの？ずいぶんやつれたから。
ああ。
A point of connection, huh? You too.
私たち二人でこうしてマルティンのお葬式をしている。いい人だった。あんないい人。
He was.
私、ひどいことをした。
Funny how Martin and Tenma are kind of the same here.
あなたに送ったスーツとネクタイ、同じ柄のものを彼に着させて。最低ね。私は最低よ。なんでまだ生きてるんだろう。私。あなたにも嘘の証言をして罪を着せ続けた。なんで私はまだのうのうと生きているんだろう。
All of this coming around again, right? Like the aggression you put outward is coming all the way back.
なぜ守るの？私みたいな女をなぜ守るの？
She saw something in you.
誰も死にたがってなどいない。マルティンはそう言ってた。幸せだって言ってた。君が駅で待っている。それが幸せだって言ってた。
But we need that, right? We can't like just go over this and just push it away. We need to embrace that feeling because only then can we properly process it.
ミュンヘンに行くんだ。 知り
Why
合いの
though?
心理カウンセラーの先生がいる。
Oh yeah, the dog.
ドクター・ライヒワニ
She knows him. Yeah, she's met
知ってい
him
るのか。
in the
とり
train.
あえずドクター・ライヒワインにかくまってもらうんだ。あの人ならよくしてくれる。そして警察へ行け。このフランクフルトの赤ん坊の組織に狙われていること、そしてロベルトに狙われていること、すべて洗いざらい話すんだ。
あなたのことも話すわ。あなたは誰も殺してない。すべてヨハンがやったこと、すべて話すわ。だからあなたもミュンヘンへ。
目の前にいるんだ。すぐ近くに。君もパーティーで見かけたろう。ヨハンが目の前にいるんだ。
She doesn't realize that he wants to
終
kill
わり
him.
にしなくちゃ。もうこれ以上マルティンのような人間を出しちゃいけない。わかるだろう。もう終わりにするんだ。
And she's horrified at that because she knows what kind of person Tenma is. Like,
ドクター・ライヒワインには
she knows what it takes to get somebody like Tenma to have thoughts and ideas like that.
ケンゾー、
さあ行くんだ。
And also how dangerous it is, of course.
君が私にできる手助けはミュンヘンに行って何もかも話すことだけだ。
He's long forgiven her, which is insane, but that is just the kind of person Tenma is. He's long forgiven her. Very interesting. Now there's this last affectionate gaze that she's throwing him. Almost like in desperation to try and get something back, but his face remains cold. Not because he doesn't have emotion, but because he has this monumental, terrible task ahead of him. At least I believe so.
ヨハンを引き合わせてくれた。感謝するよ。このフランクフルトにどうも最近それらしい人物がいると踏んで君に首実験をお願いしたわけだが。
お食事中失礼します。お電話です。
が、もしもし、私だ。ヨハン。そうか。どこだ。ハルデッガー通りのアパルトマン。
Did she tell Tenma that information or not?
ドールのアパルトマン。ヨハン、私でも終わりにできるわ。
What, she gonna drop out and she's gonna try and kill him before Tenma does? Do we have 3 people
サイトホテル
onto him now?
教室、そこに悪魔の弟子が。
My man is ready.
銃が欲しいってのはあんたかい。
え
銃にもいろいろあるぜ。
え、できるだけ大きいのがいいわ。
初
Funny.
心者にはでかいのは無理だ。一体何を撃つつもりだ。
A monster.
悪魔よ。
A devil. Okay, using Martin's words. Dieter and Nina. Alright. Interesting. And Reichwein. The door to memories. Curious. Oh, we are back. I don't know if there's a lot we really talk about. or we really want to talk about in that case. It's very interesting how his life ended, right? We are like, but it also proves something to me that is very interesting. You can't control everybody, right? Like, you can't control people definitively. And that's what this shows, right? We have the memories. We have like the tilted angles, the shocked nature, and him grinning his ass off like an absolute ugly ass goblin or something. And he's shocked, right? And he's thinking about it, like he's actively thinking about it. But we do have that moment once again, and it's not Roberto this time. And it's unbeknownst to her, and he's almost pulling the trigger. And it is that moment that snaps him out, like that moment of, yeah, maybe being in love with her, right? Like seeing somebody for who they really are, right? All the vulnerabilities, all the weakness, all the things that are inside you that you normally don't open up with. And he was one of the only ones that she opened up to, because it was, like I said, the right moment, because it was the right person. Murdering somebody in their sleep is something very cold-blooded, and it's not easy to do, because in that state we are kind of oftentimes very innocent. We are very much ourselves when we sleep, right? Because there's no mask, there's no hiding, when what we're experiencing on the inside is dreams. And dreams are, well, so, or the theory goes at least, dreams are heavily involved in us consolidating our memory and processing the things we are living through and we lived through. Future and past. It's basically all of the mechanisms that are supposed to protect our body, including all of the systems that are responsible for our conscious self, right? Our personality, well, not personality, but the persona we want to project to the outside, even the one we want to project to the outside when nobody is actively observing us. All of that is shut down. And it's just pure us. At least that is how I feel when it comes to like sleeping and dreaming. I thought they were gone maybe, or he was faking her death, but he's just pretending for a second. They don't believe him though, which is like, I mean, if you look at that, that's a really cool presentation. We go like from the shadow, right? Because they're shadowy thug figures, right? That's what they're supposed to represent. And he's stepping into the light to start the conversation. But we have Martin on the other side being very closed off. And you can see that as a metaphor as well, right? He's closing his emotions and all of his reactions off in a poker face as to make it appear like maybe he has done something terrible, like kill her, and is gripping with it, but at the same time hiding the truth, which is that he sent her on her way. But they don't believe him, and then it comes to a shootout. Love some of these angles, right? Looking out the window, being like they're there. But we see everything that we need to see. We see his face, we see him observing the outside, we see the curtains. It's like almost like we're peeking in on a private conversation, which is what it's supposed to invoke. And then we have her in the background, like out of focus. It's slowly going in focus when she reacts to what he's saying, which is, yeah, everything done right cinematically. I also think like it's very interesting. Ava's sense of style and tackiness often has seemed to me very like off-turning and very, I don't want to say disgusting because it's not disgusting, but very off-turning, right? Very like, this is not the kind of person I want to be involved with, right? Because like the style of makeup, the way she dresses, it's very old rich inheritor of money, right? Like, and that's kind of the person I've been conditioned to like not like, right? And also just like all the stereotypes that are associated with it in media, right? We have the bitch, like the person who only has money and her own egotistical things in mind. Obviously, Eva did a lot to reinforce these stereotypes because a lot of that was her existence for a big part of her screen time in this series, but at the same time, it's the style itself that turns you off. And I've noticed that with each arc, we've kind of taken a layer of that away, right? Like, we haven't put it as thick as we used to put it, right? And more, she's just become a middle-aged woman that's kind of just lost. And I'm not sure how much of that is presentation. I'm sure a decent amount of it is. Presentation and directional choices and her general arc and behaviors and whatnot, and how much of that is art style and right, like it's very hard to separate art style and directional choices and her behaviors and her general, like the way her narrative, her story is going, and see what exactly makes me think differently about her in that sense, right? Like, what makes me see her in a different light than I did before. I mean, she still has these moments, but she has way more moments of just like being this tired person who is like just involved in a lot of things and has felt a lot of pain over the years and just doesn't want to be hurt anymore. And I think this is what he just like what he realized as well when he was standing there with the gun pointing at her and seeing her cry in her sleep and whisper like Tenma's name, where it's like, this is somebody whose only great, beautiful, like enjoyable, happy time was in the past at some point in time. And since then, there was so much pain and suffering. And yes, obviously, she's done a lot of damage to other people as well. Pushed them all away. But how many people do that because they are hurt deep on the inside, right? Because this is the way they learned to actually regain control of their lives, right? How many people are trying to do something like hurting other people or damaging things in an attempt to exert control over something that is outside of their own person, or maybe even control in general, because in the rest of their lives, or even on the inside, they have a very hard time controlling anything. And it's chaotic, and it's painful, and it's sad, right? And obviously a lot comes down to like just what have I been learning growing up. And her learning experience was, the world belongs to me, right? My dad is rich and famous and whatnot, and people are gonna jump when I snap my fingers. It's very funny how we reject that, or like, don't joke around of us meeting at the station. And they go their separate ways, and where does she land? Where does she go? To the station. Because deep inside, she realizes Martin, even though he's more of a thug than Tenma, right, comparatively, Martin has a good heart on the inside. And he just got into the wrong circles. And she realizes that if Martin says something like this, and he survives, he's actually gonna go there. Like, maybe she has a little bit of doubt, and like, maybe he's just gonna leave, but there's this naive, hoping child inside of her as well. Much like Tenma in many cases. It's like, I want this to be true, and that's why I'm just gonna hold on to that. And just clasp as hard as I can, because it's all I can hope to. Yeah. And everything is in the rain, right? Perfect setting for something like that. This guy being an absolute coward, apparently, and absolutely terrified. And him being shit out of luck. And Ava too. I mean, think about it. As good as every person she's met has either used her, abused her, or died on her. Right? Or rejected her. Tenma is, I think, the only person who has been like, you know what, I'm still alive, right? Like, and I don't hate you, but I have my own problems. I need to do my things, right? And this is like, I don't love you. Yeah. Bro has beaten Tenma. Punched him in the face more than a couple of times, and he's still treating him because that's just who Tenma is, right? The Red Rose mentioned experiments are going on. The devil has a disciple, which is very scary as you think about it, right? Like, great art direction, by the way, on like the baggy eyes and like him looking like a skeleton already, right? Because he's lost so much blood and energy. But yeah, Tenma is shocked by this because obviously he's like, shit. If Johann gets a disciple and the disciple is allowed to develop properly as a person, and that disciple is also from the experiments, if I kill Johann, we could be having a second Johann on our hands, and that would just perpetuate the cycle, right? Which is a crazy thing, and Martin realizing that significance is amazing too. Hauptbahnhof, DB. Obviously that's Central Station or Central Train Station. DB is Deutsche Bahn, which is the German train company, right? Which used to be state train company, was privatized at some point in time, and then not re-assimilated. It's still in private hands, but it's like closely funded by the government at this point. It's kind of shitty because if you think about it, like all privatization of the train companies did was basically ensure that a lot of like that train company was investing in foreign companies that had nothing to do with trains, right? Like just to make money. And a lot of the train tracks that used to be like developed, right? The infrastructure was like decommissioned because they were like, well, there's not enough people actually taking the train, so we're just not gonna do it, right? It's like it's not profitable enough. Same thing with like affordable train tickets, like monthly tickets or yearly tickets for people who don't necessarily always want to use a car or can't afford a car or whatever, and they would like to use public transportation. And the issue is, it used to be so expensive that a decent amount of people who are like minimum wage couldn't actually afford it or could hardly afford it. So it was more affordable to buy yourself a used car and actually use that, despite the gas prices and whatnot, despite the high gas prices in Europe. It was more affordable to do that than to actually take the train, because not only were the trains super expensive, they also were regularly late and just not doing what they were supposed to. And like when they initiated like the €9 ticket, or later on like the Germany ticket, which is the ticket that you pay, I think like at this point $60 per month. In the beginning was 50, now it's $60 per month to take any train you want to, except for the fast ones, right? Except for like the national ICE trains, which are speed trains. Just like take all of the local trains that you want in any state of Germany that you want, which basically means you can go wherever you want. Just going to take you a little bit longer, right? You maybe have to plan in a full day of traveling instead of just 2 to 3 hours when you take like the ICE trains. But like, it made it so affordable that a lot of people were buying into it. But even now, like the train company is like, well, we're not making enough money off of that, so they want to make it more expensive again. Which is like, then a lot of people will probably jump ship, right? At the moment, the government is putting a lot of money into that as subsidies, right? Which is actually a good idea if you think about it, right? Basically, you're putting subsidies into the system in order to make it affordable for most citizens to buy these tickets, which keeps up the infrastructure of the train, like of the train company in Germany, and also keeps people being able to reach their place of work easier and with less personal like with less like personal carbon emissions with like cars and whatnot, and gets you to the point where you maybe can be more productive for a company, right? Like, it's a great thing, right? Less congestion in the cities, less carbon emissions, more flexibility when it comes to certain things, right? Like affordable transportation costs to your place of work, right? Like where you don't have to pay 150 or 200 bucks each month in order to even afford going there, right? So it's a win-win for the majority of society, and still the government is like, oh, we're paying a little bit too much. We could be saving a couple of billions if we didn't subsidize this. So if we can make it more expensive, we can save some money, we can use it for something else. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Everybody should have the right for public transportation, okay? Hello. This is like a given, right? And it's also clear, like very clear, that it is a very net positive for society, because it keeps the train infrastructure alive. It keeps the services better, right? And this also makes it better for somebody who is, for example, like traveling by train on a more not work-related basis, right? Like using the train to actually go drive into vacation, right? Like travel to your vacation destination or whatever within Europe. That's a big plus, and that wouldn't be as easy and would be a lot more expensive if all of these tracks and like the trains that are in like that are actually being used wouldn't be partially subsidized and held in good condition by people regularly traveling by train on the day-to-day as well. So I don't know. This just escalated into a politic discussion. I'm sorry about that. Just think it's stupid that people just don't see the long-term gain of a lot of services that are beneficial for everyone, right? Because some people are like, well, I don't want to pay for something if it's only beneficial for me a handful of times. I don't want to pay for somebody else's sickness. I don't want to pay for somebody else's, like to help somebody else in difficult life situation. I'm basically an egotistical bitch who doesn't want to pay any money if it's not for me. Which is a very unfortunate reality in the world, but one that, in my opinion, has to go sooner or later. There are like way too many people on Earth to actually make that a sustainable thing. Like, it's not okay that a couple dozen people have more money than entire countries. You don't need that money, right? And it won't kill you to give like a couple of % more of what you have. Because newsflash, if somebody earns like 200,000 bucks in a year, and that's not even a problem, by the way, that's not even a problem, like what people are earning on income. The big problem is people just earning on capital gains and inheritance and whatever. But like even if you go for income, like very high incomes, somebody like makes like 200 or say 600,000 per year, and they have to give away 50% of that. That's 300,000. That's a lot of fucking money. I agree. In comparison, if somebody earns 30,000 or 60,000, let's say 60,000 a year, that's still relatively well earning, I would say, like middle class. 50% would be 30,000, right? And you're like, well, that the amount that the rich person is giving, like 300,000, that's like 10 times as much as the middle class person is giving, which is like 30,000. But if you think about it, how much is the rich person allowed to keep of their money compared to the person that is middle class, right? The person that's middle class is allowed to keep 30,000 of their money. The rich person is allowed to, like, if we compare that with like a tax rate of 50%, just as an example, the rich person is allowed to keep 300,000 of their money. So even though both of them give 50%, right? And even though like the rich person is paying 10 times as much in taxes as the poor person, which is, by the way, that's not a thing, but let's just assume that for a second, right? The huge problem is that the rich person is still keeping 10 times as much money as the middle class person. We don't talk about poor people even, right? And people who are poor and middle class, they can't afford somebody who is doing their taxes for them and using all the loopholes. They can't be using all of the benefits that they have unless they are really savvy in what they're doing and they receive the appropriate education for that, right? Like, so what ends up happening is that a very, very rich person that is inheriting or making capital gains or whatever, they have to pay a lot less money, 25% in Europe, in Germany, on anything they do at the stock market, right? Anything they earn at the stock market. So it's only 25% instead of like the 50 or 40 something that a middle class person is paying on their normally earned money through their work. They find loopholes to actually offset some of the taxes they have to pay, and effectively in the end, with the money they earn per year, they're paying maybe like 20 or 15% of what of all of their earnings in taxes, while the middle class person is paying oftentimes the full 30 or 40% or 25% depending on what they earn, right? And can't just put that off because they neither have the knowledge, nor do they have the time to busy themselves with it, nor do they have as much potential to earn money in stock market value and through means other than just their normal work. So there's like a giant difference there. And then I think it's an absolute gross thing to sit yourself down and be like, well, you know, I don't want to be paying $300 or $1,000 per month more in order to keep the entire country, all of the people who are hardworking people down there, safe and keep them within an affordable medical healthcare system, right? It's like, I don't know, man. Not even willing to give scraps to somebody, despite having more than enough. Which makes me really angry. But yeah, that was my rant about politics. I'm sorry about that. Really cool, some of the angles we use here with him in the foreground. Just passively observing her and like, but being very considerate not to be weird or to like make her feel unsettled. And then he's just striking up a conversation for a second. He's like, because he feels like this is a person that looks like they're waiting for someone. And Tenma comes with a heavy heart, gaze downwards, right? We do have, like, he doesn't want to look her into the eyes because all the emotion, all the pain would come out immediately, right? And it's hard for him, overwhelming for him to actually be the bringer of bad news here. And she really lets herself go. And there's no animosity here from Tenma. And we talked about that, right? The first time that they actually sit opposite of each other and it's almost going like a normal conversation, right? Like, Sashiburi, how have you been, right? How you doing? And she's like, are you eating properly, right? There's no, not even from her, there's no aggression coming. There's just a lot of history here. First time I think I saw Ava with these big, round, emotional, sad eyes, like openly. Look at the way the eyes are slanted, the way her eyebrows are, right? And how they're very far open. That is somebody who is opening up. It's not for nothing that we say the eyes are the windows to the soul, because in the eyes we very quickly see what is somebody, not just like in the eyes in general, we do see a lot of things that gives us a little bit of a hint of an understanding why a person is acting the way they are acting or what's going on inside of them. We see what they are looking at, and we human beings as very visual animals are very much often focused on things that occupy our thoughts, right? And the way our gaze moves is telling us a lot about our interests and how we perceive the world and what we pay attention to and what we don't. And for example, you're having a discussion with somebody and they keep just not looking into your eyes, right? Either they're like just looking out the window distracted, or they just like quickly look you into the eyes and then their gaze goes down again. Oftentimes down. That's like, up is hard because you still have people in your peripheral vision, but if you look down, you're closing off, right? And that's like it can be a sign of insecurity, it can be a sign of guilt, it can be a sign that somebody's socially not well like versed. They have difficulty interacting with somebody socially, right? There's like I had that in the past a lot of times, and I still have it to a degree that sometimes I look people in the eyes for a couple of seconds, but then I feel uncomfortable and feel like I have to look somewhere else because I feel like looking into their eyes longer is too intimate, right? That's too close, that's too... And I do feel like some others, like a lot of other people don't feel like that, right? Like extroverts especially, I don't feel like they have those feelings. But maybe they do. Do let me know if you're an extrovert, which is not as likely given that we are like on the internet and existing here, like mostly like a lot of us are chatters and redditors and Discord users and gamers and whatnot, and we tend to be on average more introverted. But there's enough like neutral or extroverted people here on the internet as well. So if you're an extrovert, let me know if you've ever felt that way or if you never had that problem. Always interesting to hear different perspectives. But yeah, that's the first time she actually opens up. And another thing we can see in the eyes of people is what is their approach, right? Are they looking like that? It's very closed off, very defensive, isn't it? Right? Or maybe like if we're looking from down up, but we hold that gaze, maybe we're trying to manipulate. Maybe we're trying to find a way to get to somebody in a way, right? Maybe motivate them to do something or get what we want out of a conversation. Not always necessarily the case, right? Those are not clear-cut rules. That can just be an indicator. Or if we're like that, that's more standoffish, isn't it? Right? It's like I'm pulling back and trying to keep you at arm's length. We're being defensive without actually being openly defensive. Now, if our body language adds to that and we're like that, it basically means that maybe we disagree with you. Or maybe we feel like personally attacked by what you're saying. Or maybe we're trying to defend a point, right? And then we have, like I said, like this is more like serious. And then we have the crow's feet that are happening when we're smiling, right? These little, these little skin flaps they're happening here, like a lot of muscles that are moving when we actually smile. And some of them might not be activated if we don't smile with our eyes. That's what people mean when they say smile with your eyes, right? Like, it's not always a fake smile. Sometimes people are just stressed and unsettled, and even though they find something funny or they might have somewhat of an okay and fun experience, they still have that nervousness in there or that tension, and then they don't completely smile with their eyes and the smile is received as not authentic. That can happen too, right? So it's very, very difficult to really say that there's clear-cut rules for things, but there are tendencies, like I said. And then we have the open eyes, which like oftentimes in surprise. Oh, really? Or like being absolutely shocked. What the fuck just happened, right? Like, or being, this is hard to generate for me, but like opening up, right? Like, and when the ice water, obviously there's this sadness in there as well, though we can kind of like trigger that as well with certain behaviors, like keeping our eyes open long enough so they're kind of starting to get dry, and then the eyes are trying to fix that, basically, right? But yeah, this is the first time she opens up like that, like the round shapes of her eyes, like when he tells her about Martin having been happy about her waiting for him. That alone made him happy. And again, we have a conversation at the diner in typical monster fashion, at late at night or in the evening, with lights on, in a way that makes it perfect for the window to reflect our silhouettes. And oftentimes I find myself in these scenes, I find myself, after I've looked at somebody like Tenma here for a second, to change my gaze onto the silhouette itself, because it's almost like it shows the other side of their face, almost like there's something hidden there that could be revealed, or like I want to have a more complete picture of somebody's face just by, and that, I guess that is part of the directional trick as well, right? To show a reflection of somebody, so you can show them the side profile of a person, but at the same time can fill in the blanks of the other side of the face, right? So people get a more complete picture without having to switch the angle. Really cool. Reflecting over the coffee, looking into that. That's what you often do, right? Like you have a conversation and it's maybe like more of a contemplative, mood is down kind of conversation. You don't always want to look at people every second or every minute. And while you're thinking about what to say or you're ruminating on something, you're looking into your drink and look maybe at the reflection of that drink into your own visage, basically. Yeah. First time Ava really realizes. I do wonder if her idea of like killing Johan is coming from the same person. From the same perspective as Nina's. Right? Because Nina's idea is, first of all, it's my responsibility, obviously, right? I'm involved in this, I'm his sister. But also, her perspective is, I don't want Tenma to become a killer. So I want to take it upon myself to actually fulfill my responsibility so he doesn't have to put this sin onto his shoulders, basically. And it's the first time, even with like the light in her eyes for a second, that makes it even more intense on an emotional level. And her shocked face, when Tenma is looking at her plain face and making his intention clear without even saying it. We don't even need to say it, we know it. I need to kill this guy. This is the first time Ava realizes, I think, that Tenma hasn't always been just fleeing and just on the run, but rather he's been on a mission for a long time. And that's what I meant, right? Like her looking back for a second. Guilt, sadness, empathy, but also some kind of like hint, like a tiny hint, like a whisper of a long gone feeling between the two of them. Right. And she knows where he is. She didn't tell Tenma. I think she didn't tell Tenma. Tenma found out or knew, but... Or it's maybe... Nah. Or maybe... yeah, Tenma found out because Martin was telling him. But she's like, let me... I need a gun. Funny that she's like, it needs to be as big as possible. Although maybe the best thing would be as hideable as possible. So she can surprise. Guess Ava is buying a sniper rifle. Here we go. Let's get this started. Alright, boys and girls, that was Monster. Episode 60. Could be stopping here, probably. But I'm gonna watch 61, and then I'm gonna... I don't even know if I need something to eat, but I'm gonna get myself ready, because today is maybe, I don't know, maybe stream day. So I'll see you in a second. Look at me, boys. I'm Lunga. What the fuck am I even doing? What the fuck am I even doing? Let's fucking watch this episode. Oh, come on. Let's watch this episode. I'm such a child. Holy shit. Right.
仕事も見つけたし、住む場所も見つかったけど、このベッドはひどいね。僕が乗っかっただけでこんなに傾いちゃうんだもん。
It's terrible.
ひとたまりもないよ。僕、このベッドに寝るから、ニナはそっちのソファーで寝た方がいい。
Is he trying to get his way to the bed?
あなた、ミュンヘンのドクター・ライフワインのところへ戻りなさい。なんで？なんでって、あなた学校行かなきゃ。学校なんか行かなくていい。勉強はどうすんの？ニナが教えてくれてるじゃん。勉強だけじゃない。このままじゃ友達もできないでしょ。
I mean, she's not wrong.
ニナに天馬。だいたい僕がいなけりゃニナだって心細いくせに。
Hit something.
あなたはミュンヘンに戻りなさい。
Hit the nail on the head here.
ミュンヘンなんか行かないもん。
Dita, I love you. I love you, man.
ちょっとニナ、また今日も行くの？ねえ待ってよ。もういい加減諦めなよ。毎日同じ場所を行ったり来たりしてさ。何度やっても同じだよ。何も思い出せやしないよ。ニナ！
Nina is stubborn, okay? She's like Tenma. Come on, Dieter just wants his little pretend family with Tenma and Nina after everything is settled. He just wants a mama and a papa, okay? I mean, I'm not even wrong. I know I'm joking, but like, I'm not wrong. Like, Dieter just needs these people around him that make him feel safe and make him feel like people that he's looking up to, right? Role models, people to take care of him, people he understands. And he has chosen at some point in time that Tenma is that kind of person, and he has chosen at some point in time that Nina is that kind of person. Obviously, I don't know if we're gonna come out of this unscathed, but I can very well imagine that being kind of like an end. That however this goes out, Nina and Tenma or one of the two actually end up taking care of Dieter for the rest of their lives, basically. Like, or like, you know, like stride into the sunset with him, basically. But they're not wrong. I won't say that, right? We're probably gonna sync up after this because I just stopped. But they're not wrong that Dieter should have some peers. That's something very important for a kid, just because, like, you're treating peers, right? People your age especially in childhood and in the teenage years, you're treating them on a different level than you do adults, because adults are older than you. They're used to different times. They have different ways of thinking. They have different worries, and they're just authority figures in many cases as well. So there's like a power imbalance between your peers. Most of the time, there's no power imbalance. You're all going through similar things. You're all struggling with similar things, which in Dieter's case might be a little bit difficult, but I'm sure there's people out there who are also like orphans or just having a difficult time that could relate to him. People who have seen some shit. People who can kind of share that experience. And it's very important to have somebody who is on the same stage of life you are, because kids have a lot more, at least kids growing up in a healthy environment, have a lot more free time. They have a lot more room to explore and find themselves, which if you play with other people, right, with other children, and if you like interact with them and you play off of each other, no matter if that's like a friendly interaction or if it's sometimes just even arguing with one another or getting in a brawl or whatever you want to do, right? Whatever you like, whatever the situation brings, it kind of helps us define ourselves, right? Like find a group we want to belong to, find an environment that nurtures us properly, that find people that we share interests with and that we can share difficult experiences with that they kind of can relate to, right? And I do think one of the reasons why Dieter feels so attached to Tenma and Nina, beyond Tenma having basically saved him from absolute despair, kind of, is also that Nina and Tenma went through hard times too, right? Like there is this shared connection of we know how harsh the world can be, but we are looking up, and that's why they're role models. And I think Dieter is not only wanting to stay with them because he would feel alone without them, because he was kind of like being okay with Reichwein, who is a really nice guy. But I also think that Dieter would think that Nina and even Tenma would feel alone without him, right? Like would kind of have nothing to hold on to. And we've seen that in the last arc when Nina was very desperate and just like lost consciousness, right? And then had to be nurtured back for a couple of months. Where Dieter was there constantly throughout her entire journey. When we started out from like Reichwein, and kind of was the thing that kept her grounded in a way, I feel. But yeah, we're back at the Three Frogs and apparently still in Prague. And she's trying to remember more, I guess. Confront that, which is very brave of her, to be honest. Not everybody would be doing that. Just going back there. But this is the kind of person she is. She wants to find out what really happened. Was dragged down the stairs. Against his will, right? Then. Almost sounds like a boy in that situation. Ooh, okay, interesting how we... It's almost like she's role-playing it, right? And that's very interesting because oftentimes that is done in therapy as well, right? We're putting something in a role-play of like a hypothetical scenario that could happen or a scenario that happened in the past, and then we're starting to look at the scene from that more neutral theatrical standpoint, and then we can we have an easier time identifying certain elements of it, right? Certain forms of therapy do that very effectively, especially like family therapy is systemic, I think, is working a lot with like role play as well. And systemic therapy is like all about the systems that surround us, right? Like parents, school, the systems we grow up in, right? The system we exist in, right? Workplace, all of these things. Larger like nation, society, culture, right, world, right, the global world that is interconnected these days. But it's very interesting how she's putting herself into that role, and then she's screaming Nina, because that's the first thing that comes to her, because this is how she understands herself. But then she has to stop herself and be like, no, wait, I was actually called something else. So what she's trying to do is she's trying to actively reconstruct her memory, which is very clever, because if you think about memory, that's how it works, right? Memory is not a thing where we can just play the movie in the back of our minds. Memory is a reconstructive process. That means if we, like, say we go through a very prominent situation that is very important, either on an informational level or on an emotional level, or just on a level of a lot of saturation happening in that moment. It's something that really sticks out to us. Now, what happens is we, like that, the information, all the perceptions we have, all the information we gather from it. First of all, obviously, the event that's happening meets our senses, right? Our eyes, our ears, and then it goes through or even our noses if it smells a certain way, right? Or our kinesthetic sense with like our body position in the room. And then when it goes through our senses, it actually gets all of these perceptive impressions are getting led through the informational processing that our brain is doing, right? In different parts of the brain. Our visual perception, for example, happens a lot in the back area of our brain, right? Occipital. I can not always pronounce it properly. It's the occipital lobe, which is the back, like the back portion of our brain. And just as an example, right, temporal lobe is like ears and whatnot, and then it goes through different stages as well, right? Motoric information and like motoric control and stuff like that is the motor cortex, which is up there somewhere. And right, like there's different things happening. Decision making, for example, is happening a lot in the frontal and prefrontal cortex. The amygdala and the limbic systems are mainly responsible for emotional responses to a situation. All of these things are happening, right? And then these different parts of our perception of the situation, right? Visual impulses, auditory impulses, they're being processed, all of them, and then they're taken together, and maybe we gather some information out of that, right? That can have informations on a decision level. It can have information on our motivational side of the brain. It can have information on our emotional side of the brain. It can have information on a semantic level, right? We're learning something about the environment. We're learning something new, right? Essentially, in all kinds of different areas of the brain, right? And then what's happening is that the different parts of what makes that event what it is, right? What we perceived as that event is getting saved at different points in our brain, right? At different locations in our brain. And when we try to remember something actively, like first of all, we sleep, and then it's normally being transferred into the long-term part of the memory, right? And if we try to remember that, what's happening oftentimes is, not oftentimes, what's happening always, right? That's the mechanism by which it works. If we're trying to remember something, we have to pull the information out of all these different parts of our brain and put them back together like puzzle pieces. The problem is, this is not a thing that's mechanically defined, right? It's not a thing where I'm like, okay, I have my Lego pieces, I'm building a house out of it, and then I basically take all the red pieces and put them there. The blue pieces, I take them there. The yellow and the green, I put them there. And later on, because these pieces were designed that way, I can just build them back together exactly like they were a puzzle, basically. And it fits perfectly. That's not how it works. Sometimes we gain information that relates to that situation later on, like a week later, a month later. And we save that as well. And when we're putting the information back together, that piece is a part of that. And if that piece was misinformation, or if it was like framed a different way, it might fundamentally change the way we remember an event, even if originally we did save it as something differently, right? So, for example, if there was an accident, right? 2 cars bumped into each other. People are seeing a movie of 2 cars bumping into each other. And later on, they have a questionnaire, and that questionnaire asks them, well, whether you saw a movie of a car crash into each other earlier at high speed. Were there pieces of glass on the ground or not? And most people that like hear it framed that way, right? Hear it being expressed that way or read it that way, they might say, yeah, of course it was like a lot of damage. There was glass on, like that makes sense from a logical point of view. And then other people I ask, earlier you were shown a movie and you saw 2 cars bump into each other, right? Slightly bump into each other, basically. They're like, were there pieces of glass on the ground? And they would probably say no. And the only difference between the 2 of the groups is they saw the same movie, right? Is that the question that's supposed to prompt them to regain that or to remember that information, to reconstruct it, was framed different ways, right? Like one was framed that the car crashed, it happened, which implies a lot more force happening. And the other one is a bump, right? Which is like, boop. And that little piece of information that they got after the fact actually changes the way they remember. Don't actually remember, they just reconstruct what makes sense and what is logical, right? They remember things differently. And that is one of the main reasons why witnesses in court are actually asked not to talk to one another before they're testifying. Because if you have a couple of different witnesses and you just let them speak to one another, then the information of one witness will influence the information of the other witness. And all of them will be closer together, right, in terms of like what the informational value of their statements will be. But it will be further from what they personally experienced in that moment. Which is very interesting. Our memories are fundamentally flawed. It's like we're writing something down with vague language, and then we put it back up and we need to interpret and fill in the gaps where the vague language isn't enough to fill in that information. So what we remember are impressions, right? Like smells, noises, visual stuff, emotions that we felt in the moment, right? Like physiological reactions. Were we sweating because we were stressed? Did we feel happy? What is the informational value, right? What's the main thing that I took from that? As in just the plain what I kind of told myself what happened after the fact. And then we put it back together. But it's not guaranteed to be the truth. It's not guaranteed to be exactly the way it happened. And that's a fascinating thing. But she's trying to reconstruct the best she can. She's a very smart cookie. So what she's doing is I'm trying to role play the situation, and from like the little scraps of information that I have, I'm trying to piece it back together and put myself as much as I can into the situation and create stimuli that are similar to it until it clicks for me. And obviously, if there's certain shards of her memory that stand out that she kept very prominently in her mind, then that can actually be effective and effectively unlocking things. But obviously, it makes sense that she would be confusing certain things, because it's very automatic for her that she calls herself Nina and refers to herself as Nina, even if she's in the shoes of somebody else. And this is where she has to stop herself and be like, wait, no, I wouldn't have been called Nina. That can't be right. Really cool how we play that scene. Why does she remember his memories though? Was she in there with him?
ちを集めて朗読会と呼ばれるものが開かれていた。この赤いバラの屋敷で。
鍵が壊されてるよ。
Johan burned it down, right? So there's only scraps.
優秀な生徒。優秀な生徒って何？
It's interesting that she split from our boy. But she's still here.
誰があんなことしたの？逃げた。ヨハンは走って逃げた。バラの茂みを抜けて。
Did she actually experience that? Did she actually experience that and Johan is trying to substitute in for her? Because there's some mystery to that. Why does she remember? Or is that what somebody told you? Were you though? Or was it the other way around? Something is off here. I understand you, Dieter, but... But can she, right? Can she? Because what we're looking at is her trying to find out the truth and then process it. Because back then she couldn't. She feels like she has to deal with that. Not just because she wants to make sure that Johan isn't going to continue to exist and murder people. But also because I think she needs that for herself, she feels. That she needs to remember and then evaluate the situation. Be like, okay, accept it. This is what happened. And it was terrible and whatnot. And this is such a very different story because she remembers coming in through the door. And she remembers herself greeting herself. And then she's like, wait, but if I did, then I can't. And something is off about the whole telling, right? Whose memories are they? And how would they be transferred, right? You know what I mean? Like, obviously, we just talked about the fact that memory is a reconstructive process. So there's some room for suggestion in there, right? Some room to kind of sneak in information that maybe wasn't your own memory, right? To manipulate them after the fact. But how do we parse out the truth then? That's the question. How do we parse out what actually happened? Can we even? That's the other question. And what did Franz do? Why did he just come through the door? Was he just a manifestation of her fear and the trauma of the door not opening and nobody coming for her? Or was he actually there and did something to her, right? That's
ちょっと待ってください、部長刑事。刑事の横に座って話を聞くだけにしてくれとはどういうことです？
我々はあなたの要求に最大限応じているつもりですがね。
最大限？ただでさえ一人につき30分という制限付きなんですよ。
彼らの話を聞けるだけいいでしょう。我々がここまで協力するのは例外中の例外なんですよ。当方としてもやっとの思いで5人の証人の事情聴取にこぎつけたんです。
ですからこのチャンスに少しでも多くの証言を。
甘いな。おそらく彼ら自分の過去についてなんて喋りたがりませんよ。あの朗読会の子供たちは。まあ今回発見された大量の白骨死体の事件は間違いなく旧チェコスロバキア秘密警察。
they're like too much trauma, but you need to try it, right?
この手の真実ってやつは大体ヤブの中ってことで終わるんです。
Can't accept that.
彼がこの件の担当刑事です。ドイツからいらしたバーデマン弁護士だ。あた頼んだぞ。
スーク刑事です。
よろしく。
質問事項はあらかじめ私がまとめてあります。すべて私の指示通りにしてください。あなたは単なるオブザーバーとして同席していただきます。
As a courtesy to Germany, basically, right? Because they're kind of involved in that.
通称赤いバラの屋敷。今は消失し、このような状態になっていますが、間違いなくあなたは1968年、ここで朗読会に参加していましたね、エルノさん。どうなんですか？
フランツ・ボナパルタという人物をご存知ですか？
黙っていてもらいましょうか。
時間がないんだろう。
慎重にやりたいだけです。
慎重にやって何も情報を得ないまま終わるつもりか？
あなたはここまでこぎつけた私たちの苦労が分かってない。
悲しくないな。この屋敷が私の心の支えだと思っていた。焼けてしまった屋敷の映像を見て、もっとなんていうか悲しみが湧いてくるかと思ったが。
郷愁のようなものを感じませんか？
郷愁？
そうです。あなたにとってここは学校のようなものでしょ？
I don't know if it was.
黙っていてください。私の用意した質問が。
わからないな。
Just let him talk.
郷愁。わからない。
心の傷？どういうことですか？
ええ、ですからあなたが朗読会に参加されたことで何か現在に影響していることはありませんか？
いや、別に。
あなたご家族は？
答えなくていいですよ。あなたには権利があります。
離婚しました。
He's trying to get there differently. He's a lawyer. He knows what he's doing.
問題はなかったんですがね。子供が長男も次男も自殺しましてね。
That is a lot of suicide in the same family.
別に問題があったわけじゃないんですが、なぜか二人とも。なんで自殺なんかしたんでしょうね。
何が言いたいんですか？
君の質問の仕方があまりにマニュアルに頼りすぎてると言ってるんだ。
Yeah, sometimes you need a different approach.
どれだけのことを聞き出せたかね？最近の若造によくあるタイプだ。どうせ好きな女口説くのもマニュアル通りなんだろ。
まるで親父面ですね。私には父親はいませんが、あなたみたいな親父ならまっぴらだ。次の方、お入りください。
朗読会の思い出ね。
何でもいいんです。どんな些細なことでも。
平和の神様は大忙し。
何をいきなり。
鏡を見る暇もなく毎日ラッパを吹きます。クラウス・ポッペ作平和の神様。これご存知ですよね？
ああ、なんか覚えがあるな。その他にも西の怪物と東の怪物。
Monster from the west and the monster from the east.
これらの作品のどこに惹かれたんでしょうか？
なんていうか、別世界に連れて行ってくれる感じっていうか。
別世界？
そうだな。泣いたり喜んだり怖がったり、そういったものがなくなる感じかな。
なぜこの本でそんな風に？
わからない。ただ実際何も感じない。 自分の名前すらいらなくなる。これが本当の自由だ。
Freedom, huh?
感じがしたんだ。
Being without a name to tie you down.
フランツ・ボナパルタに教えられたんでしょう。
そんな名前だったっけな、朗読してくれた人。
それが朗読会であなたがはっきり記憶してることなんですね。
はっきり覚えていること？いや、
No.
ある日ね、男の人があの屋敷を訪ねてきたんだ。
A man.
ラジオ局の人だって言ってた。その人は虹の彼方に行って曲が好きだって言って、
Ooh, his father?
魔法使いの話をしてくれた。
どんな男だった？教えてくれ。その男のことを。
You're going too hard, my dude.
頼む、教えてくれ。頼む、どんなことでもいいから。あなたの目的は何なんですか？まるで個人的な感情で事情聴取してるみたいだ。
あんただって個人的だろ。秘密警察が関与したとされる一連の事件の濡れ衣を着せられた若手刑事。あんただろ、スーク刑事。あんた自分の疑惑を晴らすために必死になっている。違うか？私も同じだ。私の父は旧東ドイツのスパイとして投獄された。私は冤罪だと信じ続けた。だが父は本当にスパイだった。私は何も信じられなくなった。この世のすべてが信じられなくなった。だが今私はある男の冤罪事件を追うことでもう一度信じられるものを見つけようとしている。あの証言者の言っていたラジオ局の男、私の父だ。父は赤いバラの屋敷における洗脳実験に関与していたかもしれない。目を背けちゃいけない。本当の真実を知るためには。
But you were going too hard, my dude.
なあ、もう帰っていいかな？
いや、もう少し。
さっきの男の話なら、彼は俺にこう言ったんだ。早くここから逃げろって。虹の彼方にきっといいところがある。それは家族のいるところだって。オズの魔法使いのドロシーは最後には家に帰ることができた。君もこんなところから早く逃げろって。
Interesting.
で、俺はそれっきりあの屋敷と縁を切った。もういいかな。女房とガキが待ってんだ。
おう。
They're all very unaffected, it seems, right? Because that was just an innocent experiment. But I feel like... I do feel like an interesting thing about this is that... How do I put that? A very interesting thing about this whole thing is I think we are thinking the wrong way. The right way would be to look, not to look how Franz Bonaparte made these people feel about those stories, but more like, why did he pick certain people to actually go to these reading seminars? And the reason might be because they are the personality types that might react the most favorable or the most way he actually wants them to react to what he's trying to do, right? So he's probably or might have been picking out certain personalities that he did that stuff with and then maybe brought it to an end only with Johann and then him and some other kids miraculously gotten into that Kinderheim 511 thing, whether they were being sent there over there and it was a plan, or whether they just by mere chance actually landed there and the conditions for them to become the way they are continued to be that way. Because you feel like a lot of the people who went to these seminars at some point in time, they either left the seminars and never came back, or they were like, fate took them somewhere else. And then they just led a normal life. like even Nina we have, which I don't know if she went to the seminars, but she was definitely somehow influenced by Franz. And Franz knew about her and was like kind of maybe even experimenting on her. But even Nina didn't get to the point where Johann was. But Johann went through the seminars. Then we had like the like without a name and whatnot, and we were at the Czechoslovakian border, and then we were picked up by somebody in East Germany, and we were put into the Kinderheim. And all of these kids who were in the Kinderheim, they didn't, or most of them didn't come from the seminars, right? So we have only one, potentially more, but only one child that actually went through all of these different events to actually land to the state of being that Johann is in. And there's a lot of other kids who went through part of the way, either like the beginning or the middle part, and didn't come out the way Johann did. Which is a very interesting exploration of what it takes to get a person with maybe a certain vulnerability already existing, with a certain like preset of personality variables already existing, and get them all the way to where you want them to be, right? In this case, an absolute monster or serial killer, or whatever you want to call them. And a leader, a charismatic leader as well, right? Like, and touted as like, I mean, the Hitler comparisons are not there by chance. They're there because we want to draw that comparison of somebody who is capable of extreme cruelty, maybe even has that like impulse in himself to actually cause that cruelty and that absolute monstrosity, and at the same time though has the personality and the wit and the intelligence to captivate people and draw them towards him, basically, in a way as to lead them or manipulate them to do his bidding. Yeah. Holy shit, she's depressed. He's getting homeschooled, I guess. By the way, homeschooling isn't a thing in Germany, actually. Hey, a long time no see. Hey, Carl, how are you doing?
長い間連絡も取らず申し訳ありませんでした。ご心配をおかけしました。私は無事でいます。ドクター・ライファイン、実はお願いがあります。エヴァ・ハイネマンという女性を。
Is she gonna come here too? No, she's not. She's actually going to.
ある組織に追われています。彼女をそちらに向かわせました。どうかエヴァをよろしくお願いします。そしてニナとディータをよろしくお願いします。
Bro is like a big family suddenly. Interesting how he acknowledges that it's in his mind.
これは3日前に届いた手紙だ。エヴァが私の元に現れる気配はない。
どこから投函された手紙だろう。
消印もよく見えないわね。調べられる、カール。
ああ、多分。
そうしたら天魔の居場所もわかるんだね。
ただちょっと気になるのはこの最後の一文。この事件を終わりにする方法はこれしかないと思っています。
What's curious to you about this?
さてと、勉強机を仕上げるか。一杯やっちまったから手元が狂うかもな。
ライヒワイン先生。
Yeah, he needed a moment.
すべて思い出そうと思います。
Yes.
その時の覚悟はできているのかね。
はい。 だからどんな方法を使ってでも私の記憶を。
正直言うと私は何もしたくない。しかし君が本心からそれを望むなら。
We gonna talk to Rudy again, or is he gonna do it?
ニーナ。
はい、ドクター・ギーレン。
Alright, Rudy.
ただ、今からこの催眠療法で私が話すこと、とてつもなく怖いことかもしれない。先生も耐えてくださいますか？
ああ、大丈夫。一緒に立ち向かおう。
If anyone can add, let's.
目を閉じて、大きく息を吸って全身の力を抜いて。お母さんはどんな人だった？
お母さん、優しい歌声、綺麗な歌声。
I'll say something about this later.
お父さんは？
お父さんは政府の軍人。
Government soldier.
会ったことあるのかい？
会ったことない。お母さん言ってた。
Killed.
お父さん殺された。お母さんは反政府運動。
お父さんは殺され、反政府運動の活動家だったお母さんは逃亡した。誰から逃げたんだい？
3匹のカエル隠れた。でもお兄ちゃん捕まった。メガネの男に。
お兄ちゃんが捕まったんだね。
赤いバラの屋敷。たくさんの人死んでた。
それをお兄ちゃんが見たのかい？
痛いバラのトゲ痛い。
おかえり。
I don't know, that didn't look like Nina to me, but...
ニーナ。
分かったよ。天魔の手紙の投函場所。
どこ？
フランクフルトだ。
ニーナ、何もかも思い出したんだね、ニーナ。
私はニナじゃない。
So who are you?
君は誰？
言いたくない。
大丈夫だよ。怖くないから言ってごらん。君は誰？
言いたくない。
大丈夫。怖くないから。
言いたくない。
Mm.
ただいま。
I'm home.
今から手を叩く。そしたら君は催眠から目覚める。大丈夫です。
私今とんでもないこと話した。
いや、催眠状態の君はそれを話すことを拒否したよ。だが君は全てを思い出したんだね。
So what's the mystery? And does she still remember it?
ライヒワイン先生、リータ、突然出ていくこと許してください。天魔のいるフランクフルトに行きます。分かったんです、すべてが。
You do.
私が誰なのか、ヨハンはどこから来てどこへ行こうとしているのか。私が行けばこの事件を終わらせることができます。私が行けば天魔を救うことができます。
So I think the implication is that she is, in a sense, Johan. Or a part of her is. But I don't know if that lines up with everything, right? The story with the monster to the east and the monster to the west. I don't know if it lines up perfectly. It definitely feels like she has some kind of alternate personality within herself, or some kind of like part of herself that's closed off. that was very different in nature from her normal self, right? Her self that we've gotten to know, like her kind self, her human self, basically. So the question is, does she have a monster inside of herself, basically? And the next question would be, ooh, cool. That looked like Lunge just now, but it might not have been. A pleasant dinner table. Yeah, I think the implication here might be... she has a monster inside of her, basically, right? Like a hidden personality or some kind of like being that she herself, right? Different memories, different personality, maybe. Different capabilities, murder, whatever, right? Cruelties. Maybe the monster inside of himself that Johann was talking about. Maybe it's actually just existing within Johann and he conjoined it with his own personality, or he like, or it is like the dominant personality for him, and for Nina it's like the non-dominant one. But that might not be the case. I don't know which approach the series is going to take for that. And most of the time it's thrown me for a loop where it was like, yeah, we actually have this weird sense of like multiple personality disorder. We threw that in very early in the series and it was kind of like always a red herring. So it's possible that this time it is as well. But it's like definitely clear that there's something inside of Nina that, be that memories or like impressions or experiences that she's made, that she is defending to the death and not willing to share with anyone. But at the same time, she did now remember everything and how it happened. So the way I experienced her flashing into those memories, especially the roses, it feels like she is the one who experienced all that stuff in the Red Rose Mansion. I don't know if that's true, but it feels very much like she's the one being dragged out. She's the one being educated in the Red Rose Mansion. She's the one fleeing the mansion. And then she's coming home and opening the door and suddenly it's Okari. And she's looking into the eyes of somebody who looks more like Johann in terms of like the face and whatnot. But this could also be a mental representation of her facing her other self, right? Fleeing into some kind of like escape, basically, into a room that nobody can reach, basically, and nobody can open the door. And around her is a house that is basically Nina, that is her new built personality, or young Anna as well. I find it very curious and very interesting, the information, little informations we got where Johann was always protecting Anna in a way, right? Like the whole world is for you, basically, kind of deal. And I do wonder why that is the case beyond sibling love and connection, right? If there is something more to that. If it's just like maybe there was some weird experiment where both of them, starting out as siblings, being very much similar and the same, and sibling studies have shown, of course, that siblings growing up in different environments are more often than not always, right, but more often than not, striking up similar lifestyles, similar ideas and interests, even like in different like environments, growing up in different environments, although one has to say that that is all oftentimes with the caveat of both siblings growing up in Western civilization. So there is like some kind of structural sameness when it comes to growing up, even if they grow up in different families with different parents and whatnot. But yeah, and that we take that sibling similarity and we impose into them the same personalities, the same person basically. But then there's a split in what happens to them or how it happens to them or whatever. At some point in time, be that an intentional split, right? And like an experiment-wise intentional split where we're like, okay, we did treat them the same or whatever, they were siblings, right? They're as similar to one another as they can be other than being a man and a woman. And now we basically, boom, we basically do one thing that we want to see how differently they develop based on that, right? But I'm right, we're still not really sure what actually happened and happens. Really fun how we're focusing on that bad pose, and then we show Dieter. We talked about that before. The two of them kind of need each other. At phases, right? At phases, it's also good that Dieter isn't present for him and also for our main characters. Because then certain things wouldn't happen, right? And certain stakes wouldn't be built, certain tensions wouldn't be, because we know that if Dieter was present, Nina wouldn't, right? But if Dieter is not present, Nina and Tenma would do certain things, right? Because they don't have to worry about that child being with them, basically, the person that they really care about a lot. We talked about the memories and remembering it. I don't think I can glean much more out of that. It's really cool how we do all these. She's looking into the sky and we have that rotation shot of the building. You know, like these flashes. It's really cool that we have these bright light flashes, because it often, this is how it feels when you're thinking back on memories and you're like, it's almost there, right? It's at the tip of my tongue. It's like almost like I'm seeing it, but I can't focus it, right? It's like everything is out of focus and oversaturated, and I can't really make out the shapes. I can only, just like there's colors everywhere, and it's not, right? But it's not coming together. Sensations that might remind us of certain things. That really important like scene with Bonaparte putting his hand in front of you, right? Like, and the question that remains here is like, what did he do? Because like, really cool cinematography too, how we keep the eye in focus and keep the eye in the center of the screen and keep the eye as the central object, because it is his soul, his intention, his character, his person influencing Nina, probably. Really cool how we're working with backgrounds and her like in front of the background as well, how she's getting bigger because we zoom in basically, right? The background is slightly moving. Yeah. Much like Johan, right? Johan had that response to reading the book. And her too, right? With the teeth kind of chittering, the eyes open in horror. That is like a horror phase, like the typical horror phase of any movie. But that door wouldn't open. That's so funny. He opened that up and it's like, follow me. That's not Bonaparte, by the way. That's one of his henchmen that she remembers from like Johan's abductions, seemingly. Like, she's welcome home, welcome home. She keeps repeating it. But it won't open. No matter how many times I said welcome home, the door wouldn't open. They wouldn't come back. That's because I can't make the final connection. It has something to do with her actions, right? Or her state of being. Because what she's saying, if we follow the logic of the words that she's saying in some kind of sense, because she's very vague here, but one thing that she's not vague about is the door won't open because I. So it's Johan and or my mother won't come back because of something I did, or because of something that is happening to me, or because of something that is related to me being here and being who I am. Right? Like, that's the idea. And Dieter realizes how much pain this is for her, which is understandable. He's even crying. Because he feels that, right? He's like, I have so many bad memories. I don't want you to suffer. So obviously that is the difference between a child and an adult in that situation. Dieter got saved at the right moment, I want to say. Obviously, he still has trauma, he still has pain coming from all of that. But he turned out somewhat alright, right? He doesn't have nightmares waking up. He has two people that he cares about, that he's kind of bound to, that he's looking up to as role models. He's still a kid and still developing, and he's slowly getting over that. He's slowly healing. The problem is, for Nina, all of that is in the past, long in the past. So what we have to do is actually, we have to go back to where we were to process that. Because Nina is a very, like, yes, she has a lot of trauma, but like in the present time in Heidelberg, before all of that happened, and she remembered pieces, right? Because before Johann showed up. The thing was that she was a very healthy, a very friendly, a very open individual. She had her little problems, right, and her trauma that she didn't remember, right, with the, like, we had the murder case. It kind of drove her towards towards maybe becoming a lawyer or a judge or whatever, right, like to law school. But she was a very balanced individual, right? So you're not working on something that existed here that she has to kind of get out of her life, in the sense that cognitive behavioral theory would be doing that, right? Cognitive behavioral therapy would be doing that. Because cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on people who have massive problems in their current life, and they want to get over that and process that and eliminate that in order to function properly again in society and be satisfied and happy and have a nice, enjoyable life, right? Because they have massive issues. Struggling with social anxieties, having panic attacks, having depression, all of these things, right? Those are current day problems that exist in the current day and in everyday life. Now for Nina, it's a little bit different. Like, that's almost like post-traumatic stress disorder, right? In a sense, or anything that is similar to that. Because what we have is somebody who has been very, very well off in life until an event happened that re-triggered those memories and kind of threw her life off balance. And now she has to be, like, she is for herself, right? Like, to exist and take up a regular life again, she needs to process these things, this trauma that is in her past. Because now she remembers parts of it. And with just remembering parts of it and not the full thing, and she's not able to process further. So when she remembers parts of it, that is when the problems come in, right? Like the shakes, the nightmares, the whatever, right? And like that feeling that you can't just live your life. And obviously, we're not even talking about Johann and the responsibility she feels for that and whatever, right? And the responsibility also and the care she has for Tenma and Dieter here. But for her, what we need to go in the past that would be more close to anything from family therapy over to like psychoanalytical therapy, where we look into what actually caused that in the beginning and how can we learn and start to process that, right? Remember it again, bring it into the present, bring it out of the unconscious into the conscious mind, which will probably meet a lot of defense mechanisms that are trying to keep all of that information in the subconscious, because that's where it's safer for you, right? Where you're not getting confronted with all of the pain and the suffering and the problems. But she wants to actively get that out of there in order to properly, tangibly work with it and process it and accept it and then heal from that. And Dieter, as a child and as like his a child in his unique position, on the one hand, can understand her pain, empathizes a lot with that, right? And since he loves her a lot, he doesn't want her to go through that pain, but he does not yet understand, or at least nobody has explained to him, that it is very important for Nina to actually do this. At the same time, Reichwein later says it. He's like, I think you did you did good. And I think that's the case because Reichwein thinks it was better that they came back and didn't just constantly throw themselves at that, because there's nothing more that she can really gain out of that. But that it's more important and that she could receive more help if she's with him, right? Through himself or through Dr. Gillen. I call him Rudy because that's I can easily remember that. And him, I forgot his name, but he's like... They said it here, I think. Right. Werdemann. The two of them kind of with a similar goal. Really funny, right? He's a big guy, holy shit. And he's very like dismissive of that, right? He's like, you're only here to listen, right? Like, this is my investigation. I need to, right? And as we've said it later, we have these confrontations and these arguments. And I don't know, in some cases these arguments might even be helpful, where one is asking the question and the person wants to block, but then like the other person's like, what are you asking? I wanted to ask something completely else. Can you stop? And then it gives the other person time to actually think about the question and not blocking it. But most of them are actually pretty open. They're like, well, it was a time in my life, right? There's no hard trauma there. It's more of a, maybe it's hidden trauma, or maybe it's just that the extent of the experimentation didn't go as far with them, right? It was for them like an interesting influence on their personality, surely. But you do see that they have wives, they have children, right? They are adapted to society and function normally within it. So the question is, how much have they really witnessed that is helpful for the two of them? It's very interesting how this guy is more like defensive and avoidant, where he's just looking away all the time. He seems very nonchalant, but I don't know if that's a nonchalance in the sense of he doesn't care, if it's more of a, I'm kind of being avoidant and don't want to talk about it much, right? And I'm gonna act like it doesn't really bother me because this is how it seems to me. Really cool confrontation, and him actually holding him up, which is like a big feat considering like the size difference of the two of them, and like Verdemann's statue. Look at that. He looks a little bit like a crook, not gonna lie. But he is giving us an interesting like piece of information where he's like, his father supposedly was involved in the experiments, but told some of the children, look, the Wizard of Oz, look, cool story, whatever, right? Dorothy got out of there and got her happy end. I would get out of here. It's almost like he was involved in shady in a way, but he's like, I can't tell you to actually like I can't stop these experiments. The person like Bonaparte is too powerful, maybe. He's too high ranked for me, but I can give you a little hint, and if I can nudge you in the right direction, that will ease my conscience a bit. Nina being totally out of it, and Reichwein just trying to do. This is such a happy moment, honestly. Like, look, she was very out of it, and the moment she sees Lotte, she's turning around and is super happy. Those two really bonded, which is a really nice thing. Get that fucking Weisswurst out of my face. Holy shit. Disgusting. Love how we used the grayscale for Tenma when he like with the letter. Really cool how Reichwein accumulated a bigger, like a large family, basically. And a smart one too. Nina, who was a college student. Lotte, who is a college student. Carl, who is a college student and who is like the son of a very influential, like, former business wolf, basically. And Rudy, right, who is like a criminal psychologist. Really cool how we established a shot from up here, right, like bird's eye view, which is really cool to kind of set the scene that what we're trying to do here. We're trying to dive deep into her, but this is a controlled environment, right? It's a formal setting kind of deal. We're setting this up. It's still like Rudy's face is kind of really like square, and that's always funny to me. Kind of, he looks like he doesn't give a fuck, but you do, like, you know, deep inside he does actually really care. I was gonna say something about this hypnosis thing. I don't really believe much in hypnosis, to be perfectly honest with you. Like, I think, like, hypnosis, there is some evidence, like, don't quote me on it because I don't know enough about it. But I think there's some evidence that it works on, like, 1/3 of the population or something. And it only works on people who actually are open for these suggestions, right? It's like, you can't make somebody do something with hypnosis that they don't have any kind of motivation or interest in doing. So if you have people who hypnotize other people on stage and they tell them to kind of just make a fool out of themselves and walk around like a chicken or whatever, then oftentimes it might just be that a part of them actually wants to do that because for them that is kind of an excuse to act crazy and just let themselves go completely, right? Just be a silly goose, quite literally, without having to take any of the social consequences of what that normally means if you just start doing that in public, right? And I can only imagine that is my own my own like conclusion that I'm getting to, my own opinion, that it can feel very freeing and very liberating to actually just not care what everyone around you is thinking about you for a second and just go crazy and do some crazy, funny, stupid shit. Like a kid, basically. I think what I find a lot more interesting is the things he's actually saying. Because, yes, we have a setting and it is implied here that she is under hypnosis to do this, right? And that she's kind of like, shaking around a little bit to suggest that on like a visual level. But even without that, I would assume, like, if she was just sitting there and closing her eyes and relaxing, and then he would start the directed journey through her memories, basically, where he's starting to ask questions which investigators or sometimes and psychologists which are working on criminal cases are actually asking. Right? If you have something that where witnesses need to go into their memories, you often have very trained, very talented people who can, through directed questions, get you to a state where you can remember things more easily, right? By asking you things like, what is the most prominent thing that you still clearly remember? And then you're going from there, right? What did it smell like? What did you hear during that, right? What were you doing at that point in time? How did the food taste? Right? Stuff like that. And then kind of try to make you latch on to the things that actually where it actually clicks. And that works, right? That's kind of stuff, it works. Not always, but in many cases. And I can buy into that part of the scene. And what she associates with like her mother, for example. There we can, for example, make a connection to psychoanalysis, right? And like the analytical Freudian, like the Freudian section of the therapy spectrum, where we go into free association, where we ask the client to just start freely associating what's going on in their mind. And here it's kind of like almost directed association, where we're saying, okay, what do you remember about X, right? About her mother in this case. And then she says the first thing that comes into her mind, right? And just starts listing off these associations that are coming, right? Like kind, yasashi, and the smell of bean soup, all of these things that flash into her mind for a second. Fear, shock. A lot of people died. Is that what your brother saw? And he asked, that what your brother saw? And then she's like, it hurts. It's almost like he's asking her, does your brother remember that and has told you? And then she's like she is in the moment herself, right? She's fleeing, and there's the cut from the rose. It hurts. The rose's thorn hurt. And then she comes into the room. And these eyes feel like they're not Nina's. So either another side of Nina that we don't even know, or literally Johann in a way. Which is what I thought originally in some kind of like gender kind of way, like was Johann a girl? But doesn't necessarily have to be the case, right? Right. Interesting how we're breaking the tension of the scene by doing something else, and then we're kind of for a second leaving it mysterious and drag out the tension, bring it even higher, because we're like, what happened? What happened? I'm not Nina. Then who are you? I don't want to tell you. There's nothing to be afraid of. Tell me. Who are you? I don't want to tell you, not because she's afraid. That's what I'm getting, right? Because he's like, no need to be afraid. She's like, no, this is not because I'm afraid. I don't want to tell you. I'm home. I'm home. Right. And for him, of course, there's no big danger here, right? He's feeling the pressure, and it's like obviously also tense for him. But he is the physically stronger person, so it would take a lot of power and to actually kill him. So even though he's shocked, he's definitely still the one who's like, okay, I can snap her out of it probably. I wonder if he told her, or you wouldn't tell me that, but you remembered it all. She leaves. Dieter and Reichwein are worried, of course. I know who I am. I know where Johann came from and where he will go. Interesting. Like, I had a flash in my mind where I was like, do you really? Because there's a lot of time that passed since the two of you were together and had similar or the same experiences. I mean, obviously, she's probably the one who, if she remembers everything, can make the most educated guess as to why or how or what. But she's still on the same course, which means Nina fundamentally is still the same person, right? If I go, I could save Tenma from what he's about to do. Save him for what's happening to him, or save him in the sense of that he doesn't have to kill Johann. Very curious, very interesting. Yeah, I can't wait to see the next episode. If you do like my reactions, I feel like I haven't been saying that a lot lately. Do give me a like, subscribe to the channel. Hold out for more. We have lots of cool series, lots of cool stuff that we are about to do with as much time as I can. And give me an update, by the way, how you thought the 30 frames per second were. There was some visual changes, or if it was smooth and alright, right? But yeah, we'll see you next time. Thanks to all my patrons, and Terminus out.